The story begins during a time when the zombie virus has devastated all of Korea. However, no new cases have been reported for 180 days, so the government finally announces that the nationwide state of emergency is being lifted. But Young Hwan is hiding a huge secret. His daughter Sui is actually a zombie, and he has been keeping her existence hidden from everyone all this time. Even today, he brings food to her room. The moment Sui sees him, she tries to attack him. However, Young Hwan easily restrains her and keeps the situation under control. A few months earlier, Young Hwan worked at a zoo as an animal trainer. To help promote the zoo, he also created videos for the internet. These days, he is trying to teach a tiger how to dance. Standing in front of the camera, Young Hwan performs several dance moves, and the tiger attempts to imitate him. Meanwhile, Sui has always been passionate about dancing. Young Hwan often encourages her and gives her advice whenever he can. However, Sui does not like him interfering in her personal space, and quickly sends him out of her room. Afterward, Young Hwan goes to check on the family cat, Young Yi. But the cat completely ignores him and remains focused on watching television. At that moment, the cat show playing on TV is suddenly interrupted by breaking news. The broadcast shows a zombie attacking people on a public street. The following day, Young Hwan arrives with a birthday cake for Sui. At the same time, his mother Bam-sung joins the celebration through a video call. Young Hwan jokingly tells Sui that he is not going to give her birthday gift until he finally reveals where the gift is hidden. But just as she is about to open it, she hears a strange noise coming from outside. She quickly calls her father over and asks him to look through the window. Outside, their neighbors appear to be involved in some kind of violent confrontation. Moments later, the woman suddenly forces her husband against a wall and sinks her teeth into his neck. Something about the situation feels terribly wrong to Young Hwan, so he immediately tells Sui to stop recording. But in the very next moment, it becomes clear that the woman has brutally torn into her husband's neck. They finally realize the horrifying truth: she has become a zombie. The zombie immediately rushes toward their window and begins pounding on it with all her strength. Terrified, Young Hwan and Sui quickly hide behind the couch. At that same moment, an emergency alert sounds on Sui's phone, but she instantly dismisses it. Outside, the zombie continues smashing against the window without stopping, and the glass gradually begins to crack. Realizing the danger, Young Hwan sends Sui and Young Yi into a separate room for safety. Eventually, the window finally shatters, allowing the zombie to start forcing her way inside. Even then, Young Hwan tries to stand his ground. He angrily yells at the zombie and threatens to call the police. For a brief moment, the zombie stops moving. However, it soon starts advancing toward them again. Left with no other choice, Young Hwan pushes the couch forward and pins the zombie against the railings. After that, he rushes into Sui's room. There, Sui shows him a message from her friend saying that her mother has also turned into a zombie. Realizing how serious the situation has become, the two decide that they need to leave immediately. But as soon as they step outside, they find the streets in complete chaos. People everywhere are fighting for their lives against zombies. Young Hwan tries calling the emergency services for help, but none of the phone lines are working. Instead, he keeps receiving emergency alerts warning about the rapidly spreading outbreak across the entire country. However, before they can leave, zombies begin surrounding them from every direction. To protect themselves, Sui pretends to be a zombie and starts making frightening noises in an attempt to fool them. Young Hwan quickly joins in. Using their dancing skills, the two twist and move their bodies in strange ways to imitate the movements of real zombies. At first, the trick seems to be working, but it does not take long for the zombies to realize that they are not one of them. Now, Young Hwan and Sui have no choice but to run for their lives. While escaping, Sui suddenly slips and falls to the ground. An elderly zombie immediately lunges at her and tries to bite her. Without hesitation, Young Hwan throws his arm forward and takes the bite himself. Fortunately, the old woman is wearing dentures. The two continue running, but the number of zombies on the streets is overwhelming. Because of this, Young Hwan hands Sui the carrier containing Young Yi and tells her to stay where she is while he goes to find a vehicle. On the way, he picks up a traffic sign and uses it to push zombies out of his path. Eventually, he manages to reach a car. But the moment he gets inside, zombies begin surrounding the vehicle from all sides, barely managing to escape. Afterward, he returns to pick up his daughter and Young Yi. Together, they finally manage to leave the city behind. Once they reach the outskirts, Sui seems unusually troubled. Young Hwan notices that she keeps looking at her arm. Growing suspicious, he immediately checks it. The moment he sees the wound, his heart sinks. Sui has been bitten by a zombie. Young Hwan tries to comfort her and assures her that everything will be fine, but by then, it is already too late. Sui's body begins changing rapidly. The moment she regains awareness, she tries to bite her father. Panicking, Young Hwan jerks the steering wheel, causing the car to veer off the road. He quickly grabs the hood of her sweatshirt and tightens it around her neck to keep her from reaching him, but Sui manages to knock him down. Young-hwan immediately grabs the seatbelt and struggles to climb into the back seat. A fierce struggle continues between the two for quite some time. Eventually, Sui hits her head against part of the vehicle and loses consciousness. By the time evening arrives, Bam-soon returns home, where Young-hwan is already waiting outside. He tells her that Sui is sick and tries to stop her from going inside. However, Bam-soon ignores his warning and enters the house anyway. Then she spots Sui crouching in a corner, growling like an animal. Annoyed by what she sees, Bam-soon starts scolding her granddaughter. But suddenly, Sui charges toward her and attacks. Using her back scratcher stick, she strikes Sui on the head twice and knocks her unconscious. Afterwards, Sui is tied securely to a chair. Only then does Young-hwan reveal the entire truth. Meanwhile, the government is holding a press conference that is being broadcast live on television. The government explains that it is working alongside the military to contain the outbreak and urges everyone to stay away from zombies. The following day, Young-hwan visits a hospital and tells Sui to wait for him in the car. Once inside, he sees that a doctor has just been bitten by a zombie, and a crowd of frightened people has gathered around him. Nearby, a woman is desperately trying to protect her zombie son. Then, without warning, the boy bites his own mother. Seeing this, the soldiers immediately open fire and put the zombie down. The horrifying scene terrifies Young-hwan. When he notices more soldiers arriving in the area, he makes a firm decision. No matter what happens, he will never reveal Sui's secret to anyone. After returning home, Young-hwan takes away Bam-soon's phone, so she cannot accidentally tell her friends about Sui. He then begs her to keep everything a secret. At the same time, a public announcement appears on television stating that hiding a zombie is a criminal offense. But Young-hwan cannot bear the thought of watching his daughter get shot by the authorities. He says that if it ever comes to that, he would rather end her suffering himself. Later, he digs a grave in the garden and slowly walks towards Sui while holding a shovel. However, as he approaches her, memories of all the happy moments they shared together begin flooding back into his mind. In the end, his heart breaks. Unable to go through with it, Young-hwan bursts into tears. Watching this, Bam-soon picks up the shovel herself and says that if Young-hwan cannot do it, then she will. But Young-hwan immediately stops her as well. During their emotional argument, Sui manages to free herself from the ropes and escapes. Yang-yi's constant meowing alerts Bam-soon and Young-hwan that Sui is gone. The two immediately begin searching for her throughout the village. Then Young-hwan remembers a special place that Sui used to visit when she was a child. He rushes toward the riverside and eventually finds her there. Young-hwan realizes that if Sui came to this place on her own, then some of her old memories must still be alive. At that moment, he becomes convinced that the virus has not completely erased the person she once was. To prove his theory, he plays a song on his phone. As soon as the music starts, Sui begins dancing. Later, the family watches a video made by a scientist. The scientist explains that the virus damages brain cells and leaves behind only the basic instinct to survive. However, he also reveals that experiments conducted on mice have produced promising results. According to his research, properly stimulating the brain can restore old memories and reduce the effects of the virus. Meanwhile, Bam-soon tries feeding Sui eggs and rice, but Sui refuses to touch them and only shows interest in meat-based food. At that moment, Dong-bi suddenly arrives at the house. Young-hwan and Bam-soon try their best to keep him away from Sui. However, Dong-bi eventually sees her anyway. The moment he notices her condition, he runs out toward the road and tries to call the police. But Young-hwan stops him before he can do it. He then explains his entire theory about Sui. When Dong-bi refuses to believe him, Young-hwan shows him a video of zombie Sui dancing. Afterward, he swears that just as he trained wild tigers, he can also train his daughter. That night, after Sui falls asleep, Young-hwan tells Bam-soon that Dong-bi wants them to leave the village first thing in the morning. However, when Young-hwan steps outside the next day, he finds Dong-bi sleeping inside his car. This time though, Dong-bi has some good news. He has learned that a pharmaceutical company is developing a treatment for the virus. Because of this, he decides that Young-hwan can keep Sui with him until the cure is finally ready. For safety, the entire family takes Sui to a remote island, where they plan to train her and help her regain control of herself. Young-hwan begins by teaching her something simple, how to shake hands. However, instead of cooperating, Sui immediately starts biting the glove that is being offered to her. Seeing this, Dong-bi becomes terrified and starts thinking about running away. Young-hwan quickly reminds him that he should never turn his back on a zombie. After that, Young-hwan tries teaching her how to behave around other people. But moments later, she tries to bite him once again. As a result, Young-hwan blows a whistle to stop her. He believes that the training is finally starting to work. However, the truth is something entirely different. Sui only stops because Bam-soon is standing behind him and silently intimidating her. The following day, everyone works together to help Sui exercise. Meanwhile, Young-hwan begins documenting her progress by taking photographs and keeping a detailed journal. At the same time, Bam-soon takes excellent care of her and makes sure she is always well fed. During this process, Young-hwan notices something important. Whenever Sui has a full stomach, she becomes much less aggressive and is far less likely to try biting people. As the days pass, the number of zombies throughout the country gradually begins to decline. At the same time, the government increases the reward offered to anyone who reports infected individuals. Despite all of this, the family continues supporting Sui and helping her improve. Slowly, happiness begins returning to their lives. One morning, Young-hwan goes to check on his daughter. As usual, Sui initially lunges toward him. However, he quickly avoids the attack. Then something happens that he never expected. Sui slowly backs away and even stops growling. Carefully, Young-hwan extends his hand toward her. Sui moves forward as if she's about to bite him. But at the very last moment, she stops herself. Encouraged by this success, he starts trying to teach her how to speak. Unfortunately, the only sounds that come out of her mouth are growls. Meanwhile, Bam-sung believes that if Sui is no longer trying to bite people, then she may finally be ready to go outside. However, before that can happen, they need to improve her appearance. Because of this, Young-hwan travels into the city and purchases several makeup products. While returning home, he unexpectedly runs into his first love, Yan-hwa. The moment he sees her, Young-hwan tries to avoid being noticed, but Yan-hwa spots him immediately. She offers him a ride in her car and tells him that she now works as a teacher at the same school they once attended together. Yan-hwa also says that she would love to visit Bam-sung and meet Young-hwan's daughter. The moment he hears this, Young-hwan becomes nervous. He immediately asks her to stop the car and walks the rest of the way home himself to keep her away from Sui. Later that evening, Young-hwan and Dong-bi are sitting inside a restaurant. Suddenly, Yan-hwa arrives. She has learned that Young-hwan is divorced and that his daughter is receiving treatment for what people believe to be a neurological condition. Because of this misunderstanding, she apologizes for the way she acted earlier. Yan-hwa then explains that she only has 3 students in her class this year. She adds that if necessary, she would be happy to help take care of Sui as well. However, Young-hwan immediately refuses the offer. At that moment, a television broadcast announces that no new zombie cases have been discovered for the past 200 days. This means that the virus is now close to disappearing completely. After hearing the news, Yan-hwa reveals that she absolutely hates zombies. Later that night, after returning home, Young-hwan looks through Yan-hwa's social media profile. He also discovers that she has received an award for reporting more zombies than anyone else. Meanwhile, Sui is completely focused on a commercial playing on television. The advertisement is promoting an upcoming cosplay festival. The next day, Young-hwan travels into the city once again. There, he sees police officers struggling to control large groups of protesters. The people are demanding answers from the government and want to know the true origin of the virus. Afterward, Young-hwan visits his old apartment. There, he begins gathering some of Sui's old clothes. While searching through her belongings, he discovers a small box hidden inside a closet. Inside the box are photographs of Sui with her friends, along with her personal diary. Just as Young-hwan is about to read it, he suddenly feels as if Sui is standing right in front of him. The two even share a dance together. But a moment later, Young-hwan realizes that none of it was real. At that moment, he remembers how closely Sui had been watching the festival advertisement on television. As soon as he puts the pieces together, he rushes home. There, he convinces Dong-bi that they should take Sui to the festival. He believes that revisiting something she once loved might help trigger her old memories. However, when he arrives home, he receives another unexpected shock. Yan-hwa is casually sitting with Bam-sung and sharing a meal. At that same moment, Sui begins trying to leave her room. Young-hwan immediately runs over and pushes her back inside before Yan-hwa can see her. Afterwards, Sui starts pounding on the door and growling loudly from inside the room. The sound instantly catches Yan-hwa's attention. Fortunately, Young-hwan quickly blows his whistle and distracts Sui before she can draw any more attention. He then takes Yan-hwa outside and bluntly tells her never to come back again. The following day, Bam-sung helps Sui get ready for the festival. She carefully applies makeup to her face. A short time later, Dong-bi arrives as well. He is dressed as Thor because festival attendees wearing costumes are being offered special discounts. When Bam-sung finally brings the fully prepared Sui out for everyone to see, both men are left speechless. With the makeup on, she looks absolutely beautiful. Soon afterward, Young-hwan and Dong-bi take Sui to the festival. Meanwhile, Bam-sung attends a community meeting back in the village. During the gathering, the village chief proudly announces that their area has received an award for being completely zombie-free. The news nearly makes Bam-sung choke on her drink. Her nervous reaction immediately catches Yan-hwa's attention and makes her suspicious. A short time later, the village chief asks why Bam-sung's granddaughter is not attending school. Bam-sung quickly responds by saying that Sui is sick. However, the chief dismisses that explanation and says it is not a good excuse. Yan-hwa also agrees with him. Growing increasingly nervous, Bam-sung explains that Sui is currently studying from home. Meanwhile, at the festival, Young-hwan, Dong-bi, and Sui spend time enjoying the various attractions. Despite everything, Sui still shows very little emotion. Young-hwan even shows her photographs from their old family trips, hoping they might spark a memory. Unfortunately, nothing happens. Then Dong-bi comes across a news report. According to the article, the cure for the zombie virus is now extremely close to receiving final approval. However, when they turn around a moment later, Sui has vanished. In reality, she has wandered away while following the scent of something delicious. As she moves through the crowd, she accidentally bumps into a woman. At first, Sui growls at her, but instead of attacking, she remains far more interested in the tempting smell she has been following. Eventually, the scent leads her to a food stall. There, Sui grabs a churro without paying for it. The vendor immediately notices and starts causing a commotion. At that exact moment, Young-hwan and Dong-bi arrive while searching for her. But then Sui does something that completely shocks her father. For the very first time since becoming infected, she speaks a word. The moment Young-hwan hears it, tears begin filling his eyes. Meanwhile, when Bam-sung returns home, she finds Yang-yi meowing loudly. The cat has eaten so much food that it is now clearly uncomfortable. It soon becomes apparent that Yan-hwa intentionally overfed Yang-yi to distract him, and now she is inside the house, waiting with a sword in her hands. Bam-sung immediately tries to force her out. However, Yan-hwa places Sui's progress journal in front of her. The journal contains photographs documenting Sui's condition as a zombie. Yan-hwa then asks whether Sui's mother knows about any of this. In response, Bam-sung reveals that her daughter is no longer alive. For a moment, Yan-hwa is caught off guard by the revelation. But she quickly pushes that aside and reaches for her phone to call the police. Before she can do it, Bam-sung snatches the phone away and finally tells her the entire truth. She explains that Young-hwan is not actually Sui's biological father. Sui's real father abandoned her mother and moved to the city. He would only return occasionally to ask for money. In contrast, Young-hwan always stood by his sister's side. He helped raise Sui from the very beginning and genuinely loved taking care of her. On Young-hwan's birthday, Dong-bi took him to a bar to celebrate. At the time, Sui was home alone. After the party, Young-hwan called his sister and told her that everything was fine. However, she became furious during the conversation. While arguing with him over the phone, she began crossing a street. The argument distracted her. As a result, she failed to notice an approaching vehicle. A car struck her, killing her instantly. From that day forward, Young-hwan became the person responsible for raising Sui. When she was still very young, she had already started calling him dad. To make matters worse, the compensation money from the accident was stolen by Sui's biological father, who later disappeared with his girlfriend. At that moment, Young-hwan, Sui, and Dong-bi finally return home. The instant Yan-hwa sees them, she raises her sword and charges directly towards Sui, but Young-hwan immediately steps in front of his daughter. Seeing her father injured sends Sui into a rage. However, Young-hwan orders her to calm down. To everyone's surprise, she obeys and stops immediately. Yan-hwa is stunned. She has never seen a zombie follow a human command before. Even so, she refuses to accept what she has witnessed. At that point, Bam-sung calms everyone down and reveals an entirely new problem. She explains that the village chief wants Sui to start attending school the very next day. If she does not show up, the school board will personally come to investigate. Young-hwan hates the idea immediately. However, Yan-hwa argues that if Sui is truly as stable as Young-hwan claims, then attending school should not be a problem. She also warns them that if they refuse to send Sui, she will personally report everything to the police. The following day, Sui arrives at school wearing a heavy amount of makeup. Yan-hwa explains to the other students that Sui was involved in an accident. Because of that, she now struggles with speaking and behaving normally. Sometime later, Young-hwan arrives at the school carrying food for his daughter. Yan-hwa leaves the classroom to speak with him. While she is gone, two female students begin bothering Sui. They make fun of her makeup and start touching her face. Then something strange happens. Sui's eyes suddenly rotate in different directions. The sight is so unsettling that both girls scream in terror. Hearing the commotion, Young-hwan immediately rushes into the classroom and desperately tries to fix her eyes before anyone notices what she really is. He also explains to everyone that this strange condition is simply another side effect of Sui's accident. Later, during gym class, Sui picks up a ball. However, she has no idea how to pass it to her classmates. As a result, she simply lets it slip from her hands. A short while later, while the students are playing basketball, several girls push her aside and force her out of the game. Meanwhile, Yan-hwa continues keeping a close eye on Sui. Then one of the girls throws the basketball. Unfortunately, it flies straight into Sui's face. Young-hwan has been secretly watching everything from behind some nearby bushes. Afterward, he brings Sui to Dong-bi's pharmacy. He asks for help because her face has become distorted again. In response, Dong-bi performs a very unusual facial massage technique. Somehow, it manages to make her appearance look normal again. However, the effect only lasts for a few seconds. Before long, he has to repeat the entire process. A little later, Yeonhwa arrives at the pharmacy. She apologizes for her behavior and hands them a bag. Inside are apples that the other children have sent for Sui. Through the window, Sui notices the students waiting outside for her. Then, with a strange sense of hesitation, she slowly raises her hand and waves at them. Seeing this leaves Yeonhwa stunned once again. That night, Younghwan and Yeonhwa sit together in a restaurant and talk. Yeonhwa admits that she is now deeply conflicted. She can no longer decide whether she should accept that she was wrong or continue hating zombies the way she always has. Meanwhile, back at home, Bam-sung is playing cards with Sui. During the game, Sui suddenly laughs for the first time in many days. But just then, someone knocks on the door. It is Sui's biological father. He immediately shows her a video on his phone. The woman whom Sui bumped into at the festival had secretly recorded her. Afterward, the man forces his way into the house. Bam-sung and Young-yi both try to stop him. He kicks Young-yi away and shoves Bam-sung to the ground. Then he ties Sui up with ropes and forcibly drags her into his vehicle. His intentions are obvious. He plans to hand Sui over to the authorities and collect a large reward. Meanwhile, Younghwan is standing at a bus stop when he receives a frantic call from Bam-sung. The moment he hears this, Younghwan starts running through the forest, hoping to reach the road as quickly as possible. However, while rushing downhill, he suddenly loses his footing. He tumbles down the slope and rolls all the way onto the road below. Fortunately, the driver slams on the brakes at the last second and narrowly avoids hitting him. Younghwan immediately jumps to his feet and punches his brother-in-law in the face. He then rushes to Sui and unties the ropes holding her. But the other man has no intention of giving up. He charges at Younghwan and lands several hard punches. He even blames Younghwan for his wife's death. Hearing those words causes Younghwan to lose control. He tackles the man to the ground and begins repeatedly punching him in the face. At that point, his brother-in-law tells him about the viral video and claims that they can split the reward money if they work together. For a brief moment, Younghwan is distracted. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the man suddenly bites him and breaks free. He then resumes attacking Younghwan, but Sui can no longer stand by and watch. At last, her patience reaches its limit. She lunges at her biological father and bites deeply into his neck. Young-ha immediately pulls Sui away and calms her down with a few firm words. Within moments, the man begins transforming into a zombie. Fortunately, Younghwan confronts him without hesitation and eventually manages to drive him away. Afterward, Younghwan takes Sui back home. Once they arrive, he realizes that she is running a high fever. Later, Younghwan visits Dong-bi. There, he tells him that he plans to leave the area with Sui. He also asks Dong-bi to pretend that he knows nothing about the situation if any investigation takes place, so that he will not get dragged into trouble. When Younghwan returns home, Bam-sung insists that she wants to come with them. Even Young-yi keeps jumping into the packing boxes as if he wants to join them as well. The following morning, Bam-sung goes to visit Yeonhwa because she needs to deliver a letter from Jung-hwan. However, before she can do that, she notices several military trucks entering their small town. She quickly tries calling Younghwan to warn him. Unfortunately, his phone has already been switched off. Afterward, Bam-sung opens the letter and is shocked by what she reads. Younghwan has deceived her. He has already left with Sui. Meanwhile, when the soldiers arrive at the house, the only living creature they find is Young-yi. Elsewhere, Younghwan is preparing a boat at the dock. Unfortunately, the soldiers eventually track them down there as well. With no other option, Younghwan and Sui hide inside a nearby building. From inside, Younghwan shouts that he will only surrender if the soldiers promise not to kill his daughter. However, the soldiers bluntly refuse. Moments later, they begin breaking down the door. As death closes in from outside, Younghwan turns toward his daughter. Tears fill his eyes. He apologizes to Sui for failing to protect her. Then he says something truly heartbreaking. He tells her that if she bites him, they can stay together forever. But Sui refuses. Crying uncontrollably, Younghwan hugs her and continues repeating the same request. In the end, Sui reluctantly gives in and bites his neck. At that exact moment, the soldiers break through the door and storm inside. Without hesitation, Younghwan steps in front of Sui and shields her with his own body. Within seconds, multiple bullets strike him. He collapses to the floor. Sui can only watch in horror. Then, for the very first time, a clear word leaves her lips. "Dad." The single word shocks everyone in the room. Even the captain is left speechless. He immediately orders his soldiers to stop firing. As he lies dying, Younghwan smiles at his daughter. He congratulates her for finally being able to speak. At that moment, she remembers a day from her childhood when she and Younghwan built a snowman together. Sometime later, Sui wakes up in a hospital. She has been completely cured. Bam-sung takes her into another room and reveals some incredible news. Jung-hwan survived. However, he remains in a coma. Doctors discovered unusual antibodies in his blood that are capable of neutralizing the virus. Those same antibodies are now being used to develop a cure. Later, when Sui reads the progress journal, she finally learns how much Jung-hwan suffered and sacrificed for her sake. Many days later, Sui participates in a dance competition. Throughout the performance, Bam-sung records everything with pride. Meanwhile, Yeonhwa visits the hospital and plays the video for Jung-hwan. As the recording continues, something unexpected happens. One of Jung-hwan's fingers moves ever so slightly, and with that small but hopeful sign, the story comes to an end.